I am 38 years old, married with 2 children, and have been living in Ohio for 6 years. Originally from Houston, I moved there after my wedding. My childhood was troubled due to my parents' divorce and my father leaving us. He accused my mother of infidelity, a controversy that remains unresolved to this day, as my mother has never remarried. When I was 10 and my sister was 5, my parents separated. It was said that my father suspected my sister was not his, leading to the divorce. As alimony, he let my mother keep the house we lived in, and he moved out. My father paid for my education, but not my sister's. He did not give her child support, and I do not know why my mother never objected to this. I guess this is why everyone believed my father's accusation that my sister was not his daughter. My father was not in contact with us for most of our childhood. He would occasionally visit my school to pay tuition and bring me gifts. But when I started high school, I reached out to him, and he has been a part of my life ever since. Despite my mother's objections, he even attended my wedding. Over the years, my relationship with my father has been better than with my mother. He visited Ohio twice after I settled down, but this did not last long. He was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and we lost him last year. My mother did not like my closeness to my father, and she became distant towards me. Coupled with her anger, my father designated me as his heir. He remarried many years after divorcing my mother, but had no children in his second marriage. He often said he had only one daughter, and that was me. Needless to say, my mother and sister did not like me because my father loved me and I inherited his $400,000 trust fund. It's not just about the inheritance. My father has been paying for my education since I was young, so I ended up attending better schools and a better university than my sister, and overall, I have had a better life due to child support. You see, when they divorced when I was 10, that was when the child support and my educational funds started coming in. I was 12, so my mother had little control over it. The educational fees were paid directly from the child support to the schools and universities. My mother did spend a portion on my sister and other household matters, as I was not a foolish child, and my mother kept me happy so that I would not complain to anyone. So I cannot say that my mother and sister were not good to me during my upbringing, but they did not like me. They were very close to each other, and I was just there. Also, I was smart, not only academically but also shrewd as a child, not the kind of person to be treated as a doormat or trampled on. I think this is also the reason why my mother could never be bad to me. My current problem is the $400,000 my father left me. Ever since my mother and sister found out about it, they have been chasing me to lend them money for this or that. In fact, if you look at it, this is not the first time they have sought financial help from me. Since I started working, I have helped them. As my income increased, so did their needs. I do not owe them anything, but the only reason I help them is because they are family, and they earn less than half of what I do. My mother works as a cashier at a supermarket, and my sister works in sales at a boutique. Together, they earn less than half of what I do, so I feel an obligation to help them. We may not be emotionally attached, but they have never been bad or evil to me. I hope you all understand me. My feelings are not confused. A few months ago, my mother called me, saying she wanted to renovate our house. Over the years, the walls, ceilings, and floors have been damaged. The house has never been painted since my father moved out, and the wiring has never been repaired. The ceilings and walls started to crumble from the corners. We never had enough money to maintain the house. She said that living in that house is becoming increasingly difficult during storms or rainy days, feeling like the house would collapse. She said she went to the bank to inquire about a loan, but the interest rates were too high to bear. I understood what she was implying. She wanted money to renovate the house. This conversation was awkward because I knew what she wanted, but neither she nor I directly discussed it. After that conversation, I started ignoring her calls. She does not call often, never more than once a month, but this time last month she called me at least 3 or 4 times. Finally, when I answered her call, she said it was becoming increasingly unsafe to live in that house because it was falling apart in bad weather. This time she directly asked for money, promising to repay it in installments. I asked her how much she expected, and she said $100,000. I lost my mind and said I didn't have that much money to lend. She hinted at the inheritance money. I was furious but did not discuss the trust fund further. I said $50,000 was the most I could lend, and she agreed. Later, I realized I was impulsive and let my guard down, offering $50,000. I could have ignored it, but now I told her I would lend her money, and I don't have a good feeling about lending such a large sum. My husband suggested I lend the money in installments and monitor the progress of the house before giving the next batch of money. I told my mother I would send the $50K in installments. I have an inactive account in Houston. I activated it, transferred $10,000 into that account, and gave my mother access to that account. My mother asked me why I didn't just transfer the money directly to her account, and I gave some lame excuses. This was actually my husband's idea. Let's see how much this works. I breathed a sigh of relief, hoping she would repay the money, although not very hopeful, but let's see. Update 1. I really can't say exactly how my mother and sister are trying to deceive me to get money easily. It's been 2 months since I started lending money to my mother to renovate the house. So far, I have given $20,000, and I won't give another penny. I know they are only nice to me because of my money, but I didn't expect them to lie to me so seriously and get money out of my pocket. If they were in front of me, it wouldn't hurt me so much. Recently, I learned that my sister is getting married, not from my family, but from one of my school friends. My school friend's husband is a wedding planner, and my sister has been in contact with his agency, planning her grand wedding. Yes, this is what they call a wedding. I think my sister doesn't know that I am a friend of theirs. Of course, a $50,000 wedding is no less than a grand wedding. What hurts is that you find out about your sister's wedding from someone else and forget to invite. I wasn't even informed. I thought it was an intimate small wedding with fewer attendees, but my friend told me that the guest list is about 100 people. Heartbreakingly, I can't even get into that 100 people. It's one thing to be sad about this, but I'm more worried about where she got the money to organize such a luxurious wedding. One of the best venues in town, unlimited food and drinks, top-notch decorations and flowers. I checked the bank account where I sent money for the so-called renovation work to my mother, and the bank account is empty. I called my mother and asked if the renovation work had started. She said yes, she had hired a renovation company, but the work had not started yet. Until then, I was not sure if they really used my money for her wedding, but it made me feel sick, thinking that they spent a lot of money on her wedding, and on the other hand, took money from me to renovate the house. There was a moment when I wanted to fly to Houston to see what was going on personally, but I realized it was not worth it. I called my aunt, my father's sister, who lives a few blocks away from my mother's house. I asked her if she knew about my sister's wedding. She said yes, but she was not invited either. My mother doesn't like my father's side of the family, which is understandable. She said my sister's wedding has become the talk of the neighborhood. I mean, until a few years ago, their house was dilapidated because of lack of maintenance, and they were both working hard to provide food on the table, and now they have a brand new house, and now there is a grand wedding. Hearing all this, I felt dizzy. My mother said the house has not been repaired yet, but my aunt said the house is shining with new paint. Then I realized that about 6 months ago, my mother asked me for $20,000 for her knee replacement surgery. I called my mother and asked for the details of where she had the knee replacement surgery. I lied and said that a friend of mine needed the orthopedic details for her father's knee surgery. She stammered and said she didn't remember the name. I asked her for the details of the hospital or clinic, but she struggled to say anything. She was caught off guard and just pretended to have internet issues and hung up the phone. When I called her again, her phone was turned off for a while, and then she didn't answer. I also sent her a text message, but it was not read for several days. I understand she was lying. The money I gave her for the transplant was used to renovate the house, and the money she is taking is actually being used for my sister's fairy tale wedding. She also told me that my sister's engagement ceremony was held on the front lawn of my house, and they decorated the house with lilies and had an abundance of alcohol. I feel like I've been living in a cave because I didn't know they were living such a luxurious lifestyle, pretending to be poor in front of me, and sucking money out of my pocket. So what I did next was to stop depositing money in that account. When my mother called me, I didn't respond. I didn't respond to her text messages either. My sister has never called me in these years, but I also didn't respond to her. I was with them, and now I will no longer accept their lies and manipulation. I earn more than they do, or my father left me an inheritance without leaving them anything, which does not mean they can cling to me and use their false strategies to take advantage of me. I swear to ruin my mother's Princess Day. Update 2, I was right about my mother's view. When I didn't respond to any of their contacts, my mother called my husband. Tell you, my husband is really a party pooper. I reminded him not to accept any of their calls and text messages, but when my mother called him, he answered. She started crying, saying I ignored them, they needed money for the renovation work, the work was ongoing, and I went back on my word. My husband blurted out the truth, yes, he did. I feel like I really want to hit his head. He told her that I knew the truth, she had been using my money, and this money was actually being used for my sister's wedding, which is why I cut them off. I was very angry about this because I wanted them to suffer for this fraud, but my husband ruined everything. He also told her that we knew she lied about the knee replacement and used that money for house repairs. After the call, my mother bombarded my phone with apologies. She said it was a misunderstanding, she borrowed money from someone for house repairs, and now she is using my money to pay him back. This is another bunch of nonsense. After her continuous calls and messages, I told her that if she promised to tell me the truth, I was ready to talk to her. She said okay. I called her, and she told me the whole truth. She said my sister wanted a grand wedding, but they didn't have the money to make it happen. So they decided to ask me for money. It was my sister's idea to get money from me under the pretext of house renovation. They knew I hadn't been to Houston for many years, and I didn't have contact with people around, so I had no way of knowing the house had been renovated. I asked her why she didn't tell the truth and ask me directly for the wedding money. She said my sister didn't want to, she said she didn't want to get a favor from me directly. Wow, do you see that? I said I knew she used the money I gave her for knee replacement to repair the house, and she was silent. I said I knew all the truth, so there was no need to hide it. She said the house was collapsing, and my sister's in-laws wanted to visit them, so they had to repair it quickly, and in a hurry, they couldn't think of any better urgent reason to get money from me, so she panicked and called me, saying the doctor ordered her to have an urgent knee replacement, and I transferred the money in a few hours. Although I was firm in the call, I was crying inside. My own biological mother actually deceived me for her own benefit. I understand they have financial problems, but this does not give them the right to manipulate me and extort money from me emotionally. After I heard all the truth, I hung up the phone and cried for a few hours. I don't remember when I cried so hard last time, maybe it was when my father passed away. That day I missed him very much, and I felt he was the only one who truly loved and cared for me. 2 days later, I received a voicemail from my mother, saying now that you know, can you please send the remaining money so that we can continue to prepare for the wedding? This made me very disgusted. If she was not my mother, I would scold her. How could she be so narcissistic? There was no remorse in her tone, all she wanted was money. They didn't even invite me to the wedding, even as a courtesy. Now that the truth is out, I feel very depressed. I blocked them both. I also threatened my husband not to accept their calls. If he doesn't listen this time, he will have to sleep on the porch on a cold night. I am serious. I have been keeping in touch with my aunt, and she told me the wedding is next month. I didn't tell her about the money details, but I can be sure that as time goes on, my mother and sister are more and more difficult to get together the wedding they expected. Update 3, I continue to receive calls and voicemails from my mother and sister, asking me for money until the day of the wedding, but I stand firm and do not give in. On the day of the wedding, the last voicemail from my mother was that she was ashamed of me, she wanted to sever ties with me, and I should never call her mother or visit her again. Hearing this made me very depressed, and I cried in front of my husband. I know people may say I am evil, stubborn, because I ruined my sister's wedding. My mother also accused me of being arrogant and selfish, but she never thought about her lies. She has been deceiving me. I helped them because I felt obliged. I thought they were family, but in their eyes, I was just a money-making machine. On the day of the wedding, I also received a call from my friend, whose husband is my sister's wedding planner. She told me the wedding is likely to be cancelled because they did not make further installment payments for the wedding expenses. I asked how much they had paid, and she said $20,000. I said $20,000 is enough to hold a decent wedding. She said yes, but my sister had already ordered first-class decorations and food, and the location itself was already determined, costing about $20,000. She asked me if I would attend, and I said no, I have some other work, so I can't attend. My friend knows that my relationship with my mother and sister is not very close. To be honest, I was very unhappy inside because I was responsible for ruining my sister's wedding. For a moment, I considered transferring the remaining money to my friend to let her continue the wedding as planned. Then, I remembered my mother's last voicemail. She had severed ties with me. What's the point of doing so much for them, only to be abandoned in the end? My behavior may be very bad, but this is a response to their malicious trigger. I turned off my phone and went out for the day with the children to distract myself. The next day, my friend called me again. She was very angry with my sister because the wedding damaged her husband's reputation in the market. On the wedding day, my mother and sister pleaded with her husband to arrange at least something, promising to pay an additional $10,000. He managed to arrange decent food and decorations because the prepaid $20,000 almost covered the cost of the venue itself. However, the guests and the groom's family were very critical of the wedding arrangements, and my sister blamed everything on the wedding planner. She told everyone that the planner messed everything up. My friend said her husband was very angry, and he wanted to tell everyone the truth, but my mother pleaded with him not to ruin my sister's life. He is a good man, he kept silent, took responsibility, and let the wedding continue. In addition, they have not even paid the promised $10,000. However, hearing all this about my family, I felt very embarrassed. I just kept silent and said nothing. My friend said she did not blame me for anything, she just shared her frustration with me as a friend. I feel sorry for my family to go through such embarrassment, but I am also embarrassed that they put all the blame on the wedding planner. After learning all this, my husband said they got what they deserved, and I should not worry too much about them. It was they who caused all this because they tried to impress people through false means. I am glad that I am now far away from them and their tricks. Now I feel that my mother's severance is a disguised blessing, and I no longer need to deal with their lies and false strategies. Now entering the next story, Story 2, my husband finally admitted that he fell in love with my sister. After years of suspicion, my husband confessed to me last night while drunk that he fell in love with my sister. I don't know if I should take it seriously, or if this is just a drunk thing. Yesterday we had dinner with my sister and her husband, and we all drank a lot. After my sister and her husband left, my husband and I made love. We were both not tired yet, so we continued to drink some wine, with background music. Everything was great. I thought my husband was in a good mood, he always is when he's drunk. We talked about my sister and her husband, and he suddenly said I love my sister's name very much. I said what? He said I'm desperately in love with my sister's name. How I would like to taste her lips. She is very smart. He looked dreamy, still smiling. I asked him how drunk he was, and he said probably a lot. I was also drunk, but it was like a brick hit me. I just sat there silent, and he was in his own world, with a smile on his face. He looked like he was far away. I went to bed this morning, and all the memories came back, and now I'm not drunk, it hits me even more, what he said. I feel shocked, my heart is broken. He didn't mention anything, he acted normal, if hungover. I don't know what to do. He has always had a good relationship with my sister, mutual respect. Should I ignore his drunk comments? Was it just him being drunk? Should I wait for him to start talking about it? I'm not sure he even remembers. We had sex a bit differently, although I liked it, I think it was the best sex of my life. He was different, passionate, gentle, full of love. He kept saying, I love you, you are very smart. My sister has always been modest, tomboyish, but she has lost 25 kilograms and has been exercising for a year. She was wearing a fitted red dress yesterday, with red lips, looking very beautiful, and we all praised her. She was very happy about it. I don't know why I included this, I think maybe it's relevant. Be sure to bring it up when he's no longer hungover and can think clearly. I'm torn, whether to believe the old saying, drunk words are sober thoughts, because I really think alcohol can suppress a lot of clear thinking and decision-making. However, I also don't know how much I believe that alcohol alone can make a husband confess to falling in love with her sister. Do you think you can get over this? No matter how much he denies that those feelings are true, because I think he will deny it. If I were me, I would no longer feel comfortable letting my husband and my sister be in the same room, which is unsustainable for a marriage. I think he may have expressed a desire for his sister at that moment. Frankly, I know for many people, when their inhibitions are lowered and they are in a state of intoxication, these two emotions can merge together. For many people, they tend to express a desire for someone, like love. For this reason, OP needs to have a serious and honest conversation with his partner. No one can answer for him, and even with the conversation, OP may find it difficult to continue the relationship from here. Based on my experience, even if this is considered a desire, OP may carry this experience like a shadow. If you want to try to make this relationship work in the end, I strongly recommend couples counseling and individual therapy to help both of you move forward in a healthy way. Good luck, and I hope your future is brighter. I'm sorry this happened to you. My ex-boyfriend once told me, "I love you," and then said the name of my twin sister. I said that's my twin sister, not me. He said, "Oh yes, I'm sorry, I mixed up the names." He didn't, he fell in love with my sister. He dated me to get close to my sister. This is absolutely something you need to discuss directly and frankly with him. If he wants your sister, no sister would accept her sister's ex-boyfriend, that's my thinking. Then she dated him, and we grew up in a family full of trauma, and our relationship was not good because we were often compared and pitted against each other by our parents, but I agree that 90% of the time, this is the worst approach. A better way is to be friends with their siblings, not to sleep with them. But I guess he didn't think it through at the time. This is too painful, it's hard to read. You absolutely must have that discussion today. He acts as if nothing happened. Do you think he doesn't remember what he said? I agree, drunk words are sober thoughts. Have you noticed any behavior towards her that makes you pause? Ask him directly, make sure you are face to face, his reaction will tell you a lot. He has always liked my sister, he likes my whole family, and he is friends with my brothers, but my sister is his favorite. We are very close with her and her husband, we do most things together, not just the two of us, but my sister has always been my best friend, so it's normal for him to say that. If he just said I love her, it might be a drunk thing, but if he really likes her as a person and said that, the worst case is an innocent crush, but not more. But he continued to say, making sure he left no doubt about his feelings, what he said was not silly drunk talk, but a clear idea with a lot of feelings behind it, because his guard was down. People say a lot of silly things when they are drunk, but people usually don't confess their love for someone in this way unless it has some relevance. I will definitely bring it up suddenly and see his reaction, which should tell you everything you need to know. Update, hi, the rule for updates is 3 days, which is why I didn't update on Sunday, and I didn't update because I was very conflicted. I talked to my husband, and he said he doesn't remember much of that night, especially after my sister and her husband left and we continued to drink. I told him what he said, and he was neither shocked nor surprised, just that he doesn't remember saying it. I asked him if he had feelings before we started drinking, and he said he has always loved my sister because she is kind and warm-hearted. Then he said he thought she looked very beautiful, and maybe his drunk self thought she was hot. He said it's not uncommon for people to be curious about the opposite sex. He said he has always thought she is very beautiful because my whole family is good-looking, but her weight loss gave her confidence, she looks happy, and he is happy for her. I asked him if he would be shocked if he had to choose between us, and he said I am his wife, the mother of his children, and he loves me. I asked him if he had just met us, I was not his wife or anything, and my sister was not married, and he said it was getting more absurd. He hates to play hypothetical games because people can get excited and argue over things that do not actually exist. After dinner, he said he loves me very much, he is happy, and I should not overthink what he said when he was drunk. I'm just not sure, I've been thinking about your comments in this situation. I hope you can see a therapist alone. This would make me think about how much continuous contact with her affects his decision to stay with you, no matter how limited. My mind can never reconcile knowing how he would make love to her, using your body as a substitute for his passion for her. The last 2 points would play in my mind on a loop. Even considering sharing intimate moments with him, my mind can never reach the moment when I can surrender and feel connected. I would constantly compare, I would fall into self-consciousness, always feeling not good enough. ADHD, my mind can never believe that this is just a performance. I am very close to my sister, we even live within 2 minutes of each other. Don't think I haven't thought that he might have settled for the next best thing, becoming her family/friend. I've been obsessing over every interaction, every time he mentions her and so on. This is by no means negative, he is always happy to talk about or talk to her. Does he do the same with me? I don't know. Is this true or is it just my imagination? Now I don't know. Yes, there is no way to go back to this point. It's always in the back of your mind. Be brave and follow your intuition. He did confess to me that he has had feelings for my sister for years, but he said he loves me and our life together. We will start counseling, and from now on, he will not be there when I go out with my sister. He said he fell in love with her. He said these feelings have come and gone over the years. He never thought about taking action, not in the past, nor will he ever.